This is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we are going to talk specifically about the core four. So, Fighter, Wizard, Cleric, Rogue, and we're going to talk about the illuminated path that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning shows for a better configuration for all classes for Dungeons & Dragons. So let's jump into this. So the heart of Dungeons & Dragons, I really think, the heart of Dungeons & Dragons narrative is the core four. So it's Fighter, Wizard, Cleric, Rogue. They are truly distinct, and like that's not the case with all classes, right? Like Warlock and Sorcerer, how are they really distinct from Wizard? Not really usefully distinct, right? Bard, is it necessary? Like if you have a rogue, right? Like there's a big question mark there, right? But the core four are fundamentally critical for Dungeons & Dragons. They're just really extremely important, and they are absolutely critical for how Dungeons & Dragons campaigns function, right? So, I look at small screen and big screen art to help illuminate the correct future path for Dungeons & Dragons. Because the correct future path for Dungeons & Dragons, the Guardians of Dungeons & Dragons, Hasbro are looking to do that. The design team are looking to do that, but we as engaged Dungeon Masters can do that now, right? Like, we are fully provisioned with the page 4 of the DMG. The rules aren't in charge, we're in charge, right? So we can do the future now, right? But it is important, right, that the design team comes along and the Guardians come along and say, okay, this is the future for everyone. And the reason why is you have podium level Dungeon Masters. You have gold, silver, and bronze level Dungeon Masters. But then you have a lot of Dungeon Masters who do not feel comfortable in the Dungeon Master seat, do not feel comfortable with the Dungeon Master crown on, and they need more guidance, right? And that guidance needs to come from local Dungeon Masters who are showing how it's done every single day. And you need, and then you also need, eventually for the design team and the Guardians to come forward and like kind of drop it down and make sure it's accessible to everyone, right? It's important, right? So I was watching Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Spoilers for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. 4 out of 5-star movie, absolutely fantastic. Every Dungeon Master content you got. If you're a Dungeon Master, you gotta go check out this movie. And one of the things I realized is when I watched Luther, who is so basically Ethan is the fighter of the group, right? And then Luther, the technology guy played by Ving Rhames, is the Ethan Hunt is played by Tom Cruise. Luther is played by Ving Rhames. Benji is played by Simon Pegg. And then finally, the rogue of the team, which was Grace in this film, is the rogue of the team is played by Rebecca Ferguson, right? So if you look at this structure, it's literally a perfect match for the core four. Ethan Hunt is the fighter. Luther is the wizard, okay? Benji is the cleric, right? And you're like, how isn't he a tech guy? No, actually, he literally creates life, right? Creates new identities. He makes the ghost masks, right? And then at the end, when they actually get the cruciform key, the final recipient of the film of the cruciform key, that's a cross, by the way, all right, goes to the cleric, right? It goes to Simon Pegg, and and Ethan Hunt is like, hey Benji, I trust you with this, Benjamin, right? Like, really fascinating, right? Like, so I really think that Benji is the cleric, right? And he functions as the cleric, and then Grace is the rogue, right? But when I looked at this, at the situation, when we look specifically at Ethan Hunt, he's clearly doing the job of the fighter, right? Then you get to the situation where you're looking at Luther, and he is the wizard. And I think the way that Luther depicts the play of the wizard is transformative for Dungeons & Dragons, and is a much better path for Dungeons & Dragons for the future. And I'm gonna simplify it, but then I'll talk about it a little bit more at length, okay? What Luther does is, Luther is the wizard of the team, but he never someone's life. He doesn't he is the wizard, right? And what I really realized is we have it wrong right now in Dungeons & Dragons. Very, very wrong. So what do I mean by that, right? So how do we have it wrong? The wizard is broken. And the reason why is the wizard has all these abilities. He can go invisible, right? He can literally power, he has all of these abilities, right? He can shapeshift. He can use augury. He can change one material from another material. He can create light where there is darkness, right? The wizard can, and I'm using the he here because Luther is, he identifies as male in the film, right? And of course, a wizard could be a she as well, right? But it's really interesting. So they have like almost innumerable amounts of varied power. But right now in Dungeons & Dragons, they have the most powerful damage source in Dungeons & Dragons, which is fireball, right? Which is completely unnecessary. When you look at Luther, you're like, wait a second, we have the wizard wrong, right? The wizard should be pure utility, and the fighter should be force, right? Which is obvious. We already have, and this has been being said for a long time. We're like, why is the fighter so useless in Dungeons & Dragons? And they truly are. They are like very not useful and way behind any caster, right? So why is that? Why do we have that situation? And the reality of it is the reason we have that situation is because we've given damaging the ability to take hit points to clerics and to wizards. And actually, let's keep it focused on wizards. To wizards, and they have no business doing physical damage, hit point damage, right? They're fully useful enough without it, right? With prestidigitation, with the ability to create light, with the ability to become invisible, to be able to get like secrets very, very easily, right? With the ability to charm, with the ability to sleep, with the ability to create walls of wind, right? The ability to transform one material to another material. They have no business doing damage. That should be left to the fighter. And you could see this so clearly when you watch the film, right? The wizard, and not only this, but the wizard is the smartest. What does it mean to need the highest intelligence, right? It is really important that that's there, right? And here's the kicker, right? By giving the wizard the ability to damage things, you have really fundamentally broken what is truly necessary, and really, it is too much, right? And if you took away the ability to do any hit point damage, area of effect, then the wizard would actually be wish. Like, if you took away the ability to do any damage, it would fix wizards perfectly and immediately raise the value on the fighter, right? So I think when you watch Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, you see the true illumination of the core four. It is light and shadow, right? That is the cleric and the rogue, right? It is light and dark, the cleric and the rogue. And then it is force, that is the fighter, and utility. And so what we've done is we've given force to the wizard when they never needed it and should never have had it. It is too much. It is simply wrong and incorrect and was a misstep, right? And when you see how Luther plays his wizard, it is perfect. The other thing I thought was brilliant was there's a point where Ethan Hunt in the film, of course, spoilers for the film here if I didn't already say that, he actually explains to Ethan Hunt that he is absolutely critical. He cannot kill Gabriel, right? And he explains it so well to Ethan because and Luther explaining the situation. It's clear that he knows best possible paths forward, right? And to be a narrative guide, which again would put them in the correct space. But right now, they're the most intelligent, and we don't really rely on them to do any planning, right? Which is wrong. And then we rely on them to do the fighter's job. So it's completely configured incorrectly. And I think once you see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, it shows a much better configuration for the 2024 core rulebooks for Dungeons & Dragons, in my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.